In tonight's South Bank show, the magical world of Disney Pixar. Under the creative leadership of the Academy Award-winning director and animator John Lasseter, Pixar makes art movies with mass appeal. Established in 1979, bought by the Walt Disney Corporation in 2006, Pixar creates modern computer-generated films and characters inspired by the classic hand-drawn animations of Walt Disney in the 20th century.
When I was growing up, my favorite films of all time were the Disney films. Oh! And my favorite movie of all time is Dumbo.
You sweet little
And probably my second favorite is Bambi. I've studied all of his films, but those two in particular are two of my absolute favorites.
Good morning, young prince.
One of the things that Walt did so well was not only tell a great story, not too predictable.
Good morning, young prince.
But those two films took you to another world. And that became kind of a foundation for when we started making films at Pixar.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream.
The world-famous Disney theme parks are now populated by characters from Pixar movies as well as from Disney films, although the characters, like the films, are quite different.
We were really interested in not doing what Disney was doing. They were doing the, Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, these kind of Broadway-style musicals where they have a good guy, a bad guy, and comic sidekicks and so on. And said, we wanted to do something different, and we started looking at film genres. And so we decided, let's do a buddy picture with toys. And so after talking around, we realized with toys being alive in a kid's room, there's 2 days that they fear the most, and that's Christmas and a child's birthday, because new toys are coming in. And so we thought, why don't we create a story, a buddy picture about an old toy that is a child's favorite, and on his birthday comes a brand new toy, the flashiest, coolest action figure, that you could possibly have.
Something that John imparted on us from day one on Toy Story was just this idea of going back to the source. We'd look at the little army men, for example, and there's that bad seam that you see down the side because of the imperfect molding. And we got that in the characters in the movie, as well as the base, that they're sort of stuck to there. We had thought maybe they could lift their feet up, and that the base would kind of follow along like a shadow or something. But John said, no, it's got to stay stuck down. You got to, embrace the sort of inherent limitations of these toys.
It all came together kind of at the end. That's what happens with animation, especially computer animation. You work for like 4 years, and 3.5 of it, it's all in pieces, right? And you don't know what it is. The last 6 months, all of a sudden, you start seeing it come together, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is beautiful. And that's what everybody at Disney started like, holy moly, this is really a good movie.
To infinity and beyond! Buzz, we missed the truck! We're not aiming for the truck.
Hey, wow!
What is it?
Woody! Buzz!
Oh, great, you found them. Where were they?
Here in the car!
See? Now, what did I tell you? Right where you left them.
John just possesses a childlike fascination with everything that he does and everything that he wants to do.
My friends started calling me saying, "Hey, I'm hearing about Toy Story and it's amazing." And how did you know about that? This is just something we're doing for fun. It was weird to drive down the street and see billboards, you know, with Woody and Buzz on them. And it just kind of was not the way I was thinking about the way we were working.
When I saw Toy Story, I was working in LA, and when I saw it, I was just absolutely knocked out. And as great as the technology was, that's not what knocked me out. What knocked me out was there were brand new characters that everyone felt connected with immediately. And it was thought out to the sort of ridiculously nth degree that I love about classic animation.
We realized we probably had a movie that worked on our hands and it might do well, and that means we might get a chance to make another movie. And if so, what are we going to do? And we're already a year behind schedule if that's the case. So we had a quick lunch. We went off and we threw out all these ideas. And it's really the lunch where A Bug's Life got thought up.
We call it an epic of miniature proportions. It was a widescreen, gigantic adventure, and it had huge crowd scenes, and but it's all set in the world of insects.
There was a big and very substantial technical change to go from our first film to our second film.
Whereas Toy Story, everything was kind of geometric. It was the perfect subject matter for the first computer animated feature film. A Bug's Life, everything was organic. And making things organic in the way they're shaped, the coloration, the way that things move, is far more challenging with computer animation. And we noticed that everything was translucent when you get down to that level. Grass blades, leaves, flower petals. So we had to invent that, to make everything translucent. It's like stained glass windows all around you. And so I think it's one of the most beautiful films we've made to this day.
Okay, Blake, time to put you down now. Get him off me. He's cutting off the circulation of my foot.
No. Please don't go. Put the stick down. Like I mean it now. Drop the stick. Drop it.
Run! Boy, he runs fast for a little guy. Wait!
Monsters, Inc. was the first Pixar film not directed by me. I asked Pete Docter to start thinking of an idea because I wanted him to direct his own film.
I was really struck by, after Toy Story, how many people came up to me and said, I thought my toys came to life too. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if there are other things like that we all sort of had the same idea about it.
He came up with the idea that all kids know that at night when they go to bed, there's monsters in their closets. And he came up with this fantastic idea that the screams of kids are captured by the monsters and it's refined into a clean fuel.
Oh, I'm feeling good today, Mikey.
On Monsters, we did a lot of research looking at fur. We had samples of real fur as well as artificial fur that we got from the fabric store. A lot of attention, of course, paid to the eye. We looked at real human eyes and tried to figure out, like, even the dilation of the pupil. And all those little subtle things I don't think people really pick up on consciously, but they feel it, and it brings a sort of air of believability to the whole thing.
Look in the bag.
What bag? Oh, they don't have anything I like here, so take care, Celia.
Excuse me, sir. Michael, what's going on?
Celia, please try to understand. I have to do something.
Michael? Oh, good.
On 3, 1, 2.
After years of being there, being the only animator at Pixar, Ed Catmull finally came to me and said, okay, we can hire one more animator. And I looked around, who is it going to be? And I got to know Andrew Stanton. He went to Cal Arts, the same college I went to. Andrew was actually turned down by Disney, I think 3 times, And so when I asked him to come work with us, and he said, yes, I don't care, And so Andrew became my creative right-hand man at the studio. He co-directed A Bug's Life with me, and then I said, okay, it's your turn.
I had an infant son at the time, And we went to a local aquarium, and they had just opened this exhibit, and you could lose your peripheral vision of the room you were in and feel, when you went up against the glass, what it might be like to be underwater. What I realized was what a great world to simulate and capture almost perfectly. But that wasn't a story, that was just a setting. And it really wasn't until about 3 or 4 years later, when my son was about 5, that I was working so busy on A Bug's Life that I realized I wasn't seeing him as much as I'd like to. So on one of my rare weekends off, I insisted that we go to the park down the street. And I had all this concentrated desire to sort of make up for the lost time that I had felt over the month. And I sort of threw it all away because I spent the whole time saying, don't touch this, watch out, you know, that's dirty, you'll poke your eye out, watch out for cars. And here I was, this father with the best of intentions, having nothing but the desire to spend all this time with him, yet I couldn't get out of my own way, and I thought that must be a very common problem.
You are in big trouble, young man. Do you hear me? I'm coming, Nemo!
Get under me, kids!
He came up with this amazing story about a father fish who loses his son, and he searches the ocean to find him again. And it was a very personal story for him. You know, it's a relationship he has with his father and a relationship he has with his son, all worked in there. And so it's very funny and very emotional.
Goldfish have a memory of 3 seconds. And I thought that was such an hysterical problem to have. And I just thought I would give it to some side character as a joke. But I found a deeper responsibility for that character because here I am telling a story for 90 minutes about a father and son relationship, yet they're never together for more than 10 minutes in the whole movie. So how do I have a surrogate or a proxy for that? And I realized that's what Dory could be. She could act the role of what Nemo or any child would do for a parent through the middle of the movie. And then suddenly I felt like some genius because it suddenly was essential that a character like this be in the film.
Stop following me, okay?
What are you talking about? You're showing me which way the boat went.
A boat? Hey, I've seen a boat. It passed by not too long ago. It went, this way. It went this way. Follow me.
Wait a minute, wait a minute! What is going on? You already told me which way the boat was going.
I did?
It's all about fear and conquering it. That's really from a parental point of view about that emotion. And that's really what the whole movie's about.
Just one bite! Good, eh?
There's no way out. There's gotta be a way to escape.
Who is it?
Dory, help me find a way out.
Sorry, you'll have to come back later. We're trying to escape.
Okay, there's no way out. There's gotta be a way out.
Look, here's something. Escape. I wonder what that means. It's funny. It's spelled just like the word escape.
Let's go.
Here's Brucey!
Quality is the best business plan. Make a great movie first, and then it will inspire, you know, theme park rides and attractions and lands.
If you're ready to party with the toys, make some noise! I said if you're ready to party with the toys, let me hear you out there!
John Lasseter is clearly one of the greatest storytellers of our age, and we have the great privilege of using the characters that have come out of Pixar in our Disney parks. John is absolutely critical in translating those characters into the very different world of the theme park world. Take the Pixar street down at Walt Disney World in our Hollywood Studio Park, where here we wanted to create a place where any number of Pixar characters could live, both those that exist now and those that are going to be invented in the future. We have an attraction called Turtle Talk with Crush, and this takes the character Crush from the Finding Nemo movie that Pixar created, and the illusion we created is that Crush is behind a piece of glass in an aquarium, looking at us, and we're looking at him.
Look at all the humans in the human tank. Hey, how you dudes doing in there today?
It's a very sophisticated technique, took a lot of invention, and sort of is a combination of video game and theme park attraction and animated film.
We're gonna open the ocean floor to you dudes. Any questions for the Crush Man? You know, anything you dudes want to know about sea turtles? Just raise a fin, dudes. Who has a question for me?
What did you have for breakfast?
What do I eat? Oh, tasty question, dude. See the stuff right here? It's called the green seagrass. I eat green seagrass and I eat kelp, dude. That's totally what gives me my green color.
I would draw all the time, and I loved cartoons. My parents couldn't get me out of bed to go to school. But come, Saturday morning when the cartoons were on, I'd be up at the crack of dawn to watch cartoons as long as they were on. And when I told that to my mom, I wanna make cartoons, I wanna work for Walt Disney one day. She said, that is a great goal to have. And they were very, very supportive. Which, when I went to college, I went to the California Institute of the Arts, and it was the first year of the character animation program, and I had all these great Disney artists that were pulled out of retirement to be my teachers. It was a really amazing, a special place in time I was. And the creativity was just rampant within our little group because of the teachers, which were these amazing artists that had worked with Walt Disney and created all these great films, but also the fellow students. My fellow students were Brad Bird, John Musker, who did, Little Mermaid and Aladdin. It kind of goes on and on.
Okay, everybody, wake up, wake up. Come on, everybody, wake up.
Some of us working at Disney would go down to see the Cal Arts shows. They would show all the films the students had done that year. And John's, that film Nightmare, I was just blown away by that.
Nightmare is about a little kid. In some ways, the pre-genesis of Monsters Incorporated, where a little kid is trying to sleep and the things in his room are turning into monsters, and all the sort of warmth and charm that are in the Pixar films was there in his student film, even though it's just, 3 minutes long.
Those films received back-to-back Student Academy Awards, absolutely unprecedented, propelling John Lasseter into the animation spotlight.
This is your second year winning.
Yeah.
Is there a knack to making an award-winning short film for a contest, or is this the real world? Could this film make it commercially?
Oh, I think it can make it commercially because I think the knack that you're talking about is basically entertainment. I think that's what people pay money to go see a film that's entertaining.
While I was at Cal Arts, I was able to get a summer job at Disneyland. I worked there for 2 summers. I was able to get and become a ride operator on the Jungle Cruise. Now, what's so great about being a ride operator on the Jungle Cruise is you are a part of the ride because you're the guide, and the script that they have you memorize has the worst jokes ever written, but they're purposely bad.
Oh, hey, here they are. These are the explorers that were lost. They're members of the famous Hontus tribe. And of course, the rhino is trying to poke Hontus.
I actually grew up very shy. I was kind of the youngest of my family, and always would be the kid who was hiding behind my mom's legs when I was little. And it was the being a skipper on the Jungle Cruise that really brought me out of my shell, and I just loved it. And it also taught me comic timing. And this is such an important part of me, of who I am, the Jungle Cruise. When I first started working at the Walt Disney Studios, Walt was still alive in everyone's minds, right? And they always talked about Walt Disney, as Walt. You never heard the term Walt Disney. It was always Walt. To Walt Disney, the story in his films was the most important thing. And that's what I kept hearing from all of my teachers, and the technology was always in service of the story. The 2 biggest mentors of mine was Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. They were there from the beginning in the invention of animation at the Walt Disney Studios, and they were handing the torch off to us. It's like, now we're giving you all of our knowledge, and you're the new generation.
The masters had left, other people became in charge, and they were kind of threatened by really vigorous, dedicated people who wanted to knock everybody's socks off.
Look what's being done. Star Wars, Raging Bull, Close Encounters, Jaws, all this great stuff, the Godfather movies, look at all this stuff that's being done. We could do this in animation. And it's like, no, we want you just to do what you're told.
The films were strange because if something was too funny, they'd go, it's too funny. We don't want to make it too, you know. And if it was scary, it was like, no, we don't want to do too scary. So all the emotional ups and downs that a good film has were gradually neutralized into a flat line, essentially. And they were very pretty exercises in sort of passionless filmmaking.
Disney started working on a live-action special effects movie called Tron. They were working with outside computer animation companies. And when I saw this, I was blown away. Not by what I was seeing, but the potential I saw in it. The people who were kind of running the studio at the time were not interested in it. And I was like, wait a minute, it's so obvious to me that this was like the future. I found this short story called The Brave Little Toaster, and we developed it as a feature film to use this new technique. But when Disney finally told me, you know, they were not interested in pursuing this computer animation thing, basically I got fired because I kept pushing. I wouldn't take no for an answer. I kept pushing it. If they said no, then I would go somebody else. And they just found me kind of a troublemaker.
After being fired by Disney, John joined the computer graphics division of Lucasfilm.
The first film we did was The Adventures of Andre and Wally-B. It was the very first character animation with computers. We were so limited as to what we could do that we had to use really geometric shapes. So I went back to the original Mickey Mouse cartoons that Ub Iwerks animated for Walt Disney and looked at what Ub Iwerks did. And we advanced so much technology in that one little cartoon about getting more bendable shapes and things like that because I wanted it to have this cartoony quality to it. When I went back down to Disney and showed them what we were doing, and it was like, it still was not interesting to them at the time, but it was, but I was just so excited, and I knew I had found what I was meant to do.
And at that time, Steve Jobs bought us as a whole group out of Lucasfilm, and we started Pixar.
We were trying to figure out a name for the group, and so we just chose the name of our computer, the Pixar image computer. So it's a combination of the words pixel and art. Pixel is the little squares of color that make up a computer image, and art. And I remember that year I had started working on modeling a desk lamp. Then Ed came into me and said, okay, I want to create a film that shows who we are at Pixar. I thought, okay, what are we going to do? And I kept looking at this lamp I was creating. Oh, well, maybe I'll start moving the lamp around. And then one of my colleagues at Pixar had just had a baby boy and brought him to work one day. And I was noticing how the scale of a child is so different than an adult. Their heads are much bigger, their arms are shorter, and there's something that's what makes them so cute. I then went back to this lamp I was looking at and go, I wonder what a baby lamp would look like. And I just made this really cute, like, baby lamp, right? And then I started moving around, and that's where I started developing a story. We had to borrow all the computers at night, right, that everybody else was using. And so they came to me and they said, you can't have moving cameras, which was, really in vogue with computer animation. I mean, it's like the Steadicam shots in animation. It's why I love this. No, you got to lock it down. I said, oh, and you can't have a background. What do you mean I can't have a background? So at least I got a floor, right, and it fades off into black. But what's interesting is those two limitations did something for that film. It made everybody focus on the characters. So when Luxo Jr. premiered, it blew everybody away. It got us a huge standing ovation, only a minute and a half long. Everybody felt like that they'd seen the future. And it was because for the very first time, computer animation was entertaining an audience because of the story and the characters, not because of the mere fact it was created by a computer.
And the success of the Pixar studio was astonishing. Unlike most other studios, Pixar's never bought scripts or movie ideas from the outside. All of their stories, their worlds and characters are created internally by their own community of artists.
It's strange to say because it's CG and it doesn't outwardly look like the old classic Disney animation, but I felt in the spirit of the place, it very much was what I imagined old Disney to be. And from having all my first teachers be from that era, the kind of thinking that they encouraged me to have, the kind of creative process they talked about was in full flower here and was, you know, a company had been built around it. I saw Pixar in many ways as sort of a life raft for truly creative, you know, filmmaking.
The thing that we worry about at Pixar the most is to become complacent, to think that we know what we're doing. We always want to be growing, changing, becoming better. And so we asked Brad to just shake it up, just bring all of his ideas of how he believes films should be made and bring it into the studio.
Really good art happens when you're at the brink of failure. You know, Incredibles, we were looking over the yawning cliff of failure every day because our ambition was so big. We were doing a movie that really needed jeopardy, which is very difficult to do in animation. Most people categorize animation with, you know, a coyote falling off a cliff and he just dusts himself off and he's fine. You have to obey certain physical rules and show that there's a price to be paid. We had to show that things were genuinely heavy, but people were strong enough to pick them up. If you look at some old episodes of Star Trek, where they show them throwing boulders, but they're clearly made of styrofoam or something, because the way they're doing it, it's not the way a boulder is. So we had those animation problems. We were dealing with characters with special powers, but we had to obey physics enough to convince people that these people had special powers and weren't just another animated cartoon. So that sounds like there's not much difference between the two, but it means everything to the success of the film. One of my favorite moments, even though it's a little bit dark, it's where they're all in the van and they're landing in the city, and I felt the need to get on with it because I knew that I was too long. And John said, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here. And he goes, what if they argue about the exits? And I said, don't say another word. Don't say one more word. I said, I got it, let me run with it.
Which exit do I take?
Traction Avenue.
That'll take me downtown. I take 7, don't I?
Don't take 7!
Great, we missed it.
You asked me how to get there, and I told you. Exit at Traction.
That'll take me downtown.
He's coming up. Get in the right lane.
We don't exit at Traction.
You're gonna miss it!
Is everybody okay back there?
Super duper, Dad! Let's do that again.
The films always start with an idea, and there's no rules to this. Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's a concept. But usually we start by doing some drawings and writing. And so we put together a script. Then we move on to what we call storyboards and story reels, which are almost like a comic book version, a drawing of how the film is going to look. And we film all those drawings. We put temporary dialogue and music and sound effects, and we can sit in the theater and then watch the movie, having never shot any of it yet. And usually it's a lot more that's not working than is. In some cases, we redo a sequence, 40 times. It's kind of crazy. Once we find that a sequence is working, we'll start designing the characters. We'll find the actors, we'll start recording. And back in editorial, we cut all the dialogue together with these still images. We have the characters built now, we have the sets starting to be built. We set up the camera, and at this point, it's really like a real movie, like a live action movie set. An animator gets a scene. They have the dialogue, they have the camera, and they have what looks like a stiff robot of the character standing there. And it's their job, based on the audio, to create a performance with the expressions, the gestures. If there's a special effect, say dust or an explosion or fire or anything like that, it goes to the effects department. The next step is lighting, and that is much like a real lighting setup. You have a key light here and a bounce light there, and it's just like lighting something for photography or for live action. Once all that is done, we render it, which assembles all the surface textures, the cloth, the movement that the animators have done, and puts it all together into a beautiful looking frame. Of course, there's 24 of those frames every second, and when it goes through the film projector, it looks like it's moving and it's alive, and of course, it's all fake.
In the world of business, in the world of Hollywood, in the world, everybody wants to play it safe. Everybody wants the sure thing. And most people think the sure thing is what was really popular last year. Because people love that, they'll love this. Let's do the same thing. And we always believe, no, do something fresh and new that no one's ever seen before. It seems like filmmaking became so dialogue dependent that we were real excited with the challenge of, can we do this with a minimal of dialogue?
WALL-E's just simply about love. It's about the point of living and how love is really at the core of that. It was wonderful to make a movie that was just, for once, an unabashed love story. It wasn't a subplot, it wasn't a side element to something, it was the whole point of the movie. And in a weird way, I think it took this dystopian universe with a metal robotic character to allow us to be that overly romantic and melodramatic, and the audience weren't turned off by it. Ooh. There's a moment that happens in WALL-E, and he's finally met Eve. And she's discovered that this lighter collection he's had, that one of them actually makes a flame, and he never knew that that's what these things did. And he's just staring at her, and you know exactly what's going on in his head and exactly what's going on in his heart if he has one. And you're so connected with him right at that moment. And it's that simple, almost Hollywood tradition of slowly pushing in on one character and then slowly pushing on the other. And to me, the look, the tone, the feel, it was not only everything I wanted that movie to be, and I felt we'd finally caught it in that, and here was sort of a light to guide us for how to make the rest of the film. But it's what I want out of any movie that I see. Maybe not literally a love moment, but that, to be that immersed, to be that transported and that, for lack of a better term, distracted. That's why I'm a junkie for movies.
By the time the movie came out, the whole consciousness of the world on global warming and all the environmental issues that we have to deal with in our world just was so prevalent in everyone's thinking.
Wait, that doesn't look like the Earth. Where's the blue sky? Where's the grass?
I remember one New York Times columnist said that WALL-E, the movie WALL-E, was more in tune with the audience's concerns about the environment than the presidential candidates were.
This is called farming. You kids are gonna grow all kinds of plants. Vegetable plants, pizza plants. It's good to be home.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer in Tribe 54.
Slow down.
Wet Lodge 12.
Kid!
Are you in need of
Thank
any
you, but I don't
assistance
need any
today?
help.
Ow.
What surprises people when you watch this film is the emotion. All of Pixar's films are emotional. Walt Disney said that for every laugh there should be a tear, and I really believe in that. We all believe in that at Pixar. And I love animation. I don't want to, you know, take computer animation and just try to reproduce reality where it looks like you photographed it with a camera. I want to make it to where people know it's a cartoon. They know it's animation, but they just get taken away. It's one of the most cartoony films that we made. Pete Docter had a real vision for this film. He wanted to make a classic Disney animated film with computer animation.
This is a fur test for Doug early on, so it's going to get even more flowy in the wind and so forth.
Eventually we'll get the ears flapping and all that stuff.
Get the tongue going.
This film, Up, was about a 5-year process from concept to finish. And about 3 to 3.5 of those years were spent just on story.
Whoa.
Wonder who he belongs to.
Sit, boy. Hey, look, he's trained. Shake. Uh-huh. Speak.
Hi there.
Did that dog just say hi there?
Oh, yes.
Bruh!
My name is Doug. I have just met you, and I love you. My master made me this collar. He is a good and smart master, and he made me this collar so that I may talk. Squirrel!
I like to think it's quite different, both in tone and in subject matter from other films. On the other hand, there's a lot of things that I think are very sort of classic Pixar. So, you know, there's a lot of comedy and action, and of course there's a balance of heart as well. But the hope is that every time you sit down, you go to a theater to see a Pixar movie, you're surprised. You don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be something different.
In 2006, John Lasseter and Disney were reunited, and as creative head of both studios, John had big plans for Disney.
The first decision we said is we're going to do a hand-drawn animated film again. If there's a studio in the world that should be doing hand-drawn animation, it should be Disney, the studio that started it all. The other thing that has not been made at Disney for a long time is a classic fairy tale, a sincere classic fairy tale. I love Disneyland and Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. And what's at the center of every park is a castle. It's at the heart and the soul of Disney is these fairy tales. So I asked John Musker and Ron Clements. These guys are more Disney than anybody else out there. So we brought them back, and I said, you know, come up with an idea.
We pitched the idea of doing a musical fairy tale based on The Frog Prince, set in New Orleans in the 1920s.
Doing it with hand-drawn animation. And John operates from his gut. He doesn't do like a marketing study. And does this resonate with American consumers from age 15 to 19? Particularly seem to like that. But no, he just like, that sounds like fun. Let's do it, sort of.
Yeah, and it was, and we were off doing it.
I'm animating a stylized version of Tiana. She's going from up to down here. I'll put a little overlap here on the feather in her hair. so that that looks like it has some natural give to it. I'll keep her mouth still open. What I'll do now is go through and tie it down. So now I can put a more finished line on it. And I'm constantly flipping so that I can make sure all the shapes are consistent. You know, if I drew her with a head that was much tinier, the head in animation would go boop, whoop, you know, so you can't really do that. You've got to make sure all of your shapes are consistent.
I suppose you want a kiss.
Kissing would be nice, yes? I am Prince Naveen.
Prince.
I was cursed by a witch doctor. 1 minute I am a prince, charming and handsome, cutting a rug, and then the next thing I know, I'm tripping over these.
Princess and the Frog being really the last fairy tale that we hadn't told, it just seemed like an appropriate place to start. And I think part of John's wanting to do that was to bring a little bit of the roots back that, you know, maybe have gotten lost in the last decade or so. Then, you know, let's bring back, let's go back to what we're famous for.
Prior to their arrival, this place kind of was going down, you know, a slippery slope into very unpopular films. And part of it was because we had tons of creative executives who had never made films before, but you had to answer to all of them. So the legend has it, John Lasseter took them all to dinner when he arrived, and then at the end of dinner said, if you don't draw, you don't belong here. And they were gone. And John himself is a very creative guy. He started in traditional animation. He was here at Disney's. So it's a kind of thing where there is a wavelength thing that we've never had with any other group of executives. We're kind of arm in arm going forward together and saying, yeah, let's make another great one, you know? And I think we feel as passionate about it as we always did.
We were sort of slow going as far as pencil animation here at Disney for a few years, and it's just absolutely wonderful that we're picking it up again. And it's just like being right back into the saddle and living your passion. It's a heck of a nice lifestyle to be a pencil animator. We still sit at these old animation desks. It's paper and pencil and you and your imagination. And here at my drawing desk, I'm actually just about to finish a scene where she is holding one of the frogs, who is a prince in real life, Prince Naveen, up and sort of lecturing him. And you can see right now she's anticipating with her finger right there. And she's pointing at him as she's saying, make. And then she's getting a little intense in her expression, you know, because she means what she says. Make yourself, this is what I would call a dialogue partial. I have an assistant who fills in the rest. But I had to do that mouth because that's important. It's a design of the mouth that I had to put in there myself. Same, this is a drawing here done in light blue. That's usually what I call my first pass. And then once I like it and I know it's working, and I flip it and the motion seems good, then I go in and do my final pass and do what we call tie it down. So then I use graphite. And the fun thing with this character, she's all loose skin and loose flesh. You know, you can see when I go from, well, even from this drawing to that drawing right there, her whole neck, all those skins are just wobbling along, you know, as her mouth moves. So that is a lot of, part of that character, that all the flesh she has hanging is just loose and reacts to her body movements.
You listen to your mama now. Don't matter what you look like. Don't matter what you wear. How many rings you got on your finger. We don't care, no, we don't care. Don't matter where you come from. Don't even matter what you are. A dog, a pig, a cow, a goat, animal in here.
We look back at the history of Disney animation to figure out what movie do we look at to say this is a style we want to emulate. And we looked at from Steamboat Willie all the way on. Walt kept developing his style and getting his artists to be better artists. And it led up to, we think, Lady and the Tramp as the pinnacle of a particular style that was uniquely Disney.
If you study sort of the Disney films. They were dimensionally drawn. They created an illusion of 3 dimensions by the way the backgrounds were painted, and that up through certainly Lady and the Tramp, which was done in the mid-50s. Then after that, they became somewhat more stylized and sort of flatter. And I think in this film, because we wanted to sort of embrace that world of New Orleans, we did look back sort of at Lady and the Tramp, and even at Bambi for the bayou settings, to get that kind of lyrical quality in Bambi and the bayou settings, and the really cool sort of architectural elements in Lady and the Tramp, in the French Quarter scenes, and to have characters that really work in the round.
I love hand-drawn animation. I think it's fantastic. And everybody said, well, people don't want to watch hand-drawn animation anymore. They want to watch computer animation. And I said, well, it's not about the medium you use to make a film. It's what you do with the medium that entertains audiences.
A lot of people will think, oh, well, the computer guys are at war with the hand-drawn guys, and, we'll put on our Sharks and Jets jackets and, have a rumble. But it's the kind of thing where we absolutely use computers to aid hand-drawn animation. Because in the old days, we used to have to wait 2 days for a pencil test to come back from the lab before we'd even see something, and tell if it could work. So I have no qualms about the use of computers in hand-drawn. I don't believe that CG animation has usurped it. It's kind of another toy in the toy box, if you will. And the thing is, we all have the same goals. Do these characters resonate with people? Do these stories resonate with people? And however you achieve it, that's valid. I'm animating Lewis, who is the trumpet-playing alligator. We were talking about, whether or not he can get up on his tail and kind of propel himself through the water. I hadn't animated it yet, and some of the people were saying, well, that's not something that a gator can really do. And it's like, trust me, I'll make it work.
If I were a human being, I'd head straight for New Orleans, and I'd blow this horn so hot and strong like no one they've ever seen.
You try to hire people that are smarter than yourself, and that's what we've done. We kept hiring people that are smarter than myself, and so kind of Ed said it. Ed said it once, what I think is kind of funny, and sometimes I feel like the same way, that makes us the dumbest people at Pixar, because, we started it all and hired all these great people that are smarter than us, so, But it's about the audience. I love to go into a theater, just anonymously, and watch the audience watch our films, and to see the joy on their faces, and then afterwards to hear the kids talk about it. And I think it's so, and my mother was right, being in the arts is such a noble profession, and I'll always, I always cherish that.
I know you, I walked with you once upon a dream. I know you, the gleam in your eyes is so familiar a gleam, yet I know it.
Well, next tonight, Macy gets suspended over a 20-year-old cover-up. Things are getting political in Crossing Jordan in just a moment.